Hello again, everyone. Hope you enjoyed last week's read. And we had said that we were going to read Is the Black Male Castrated for this week. Last week we did Black Man, My Man, Listen by Gail Stokes. Is it Stokes? Yes. So this week we are going to continue on with Is the Black Male Castrated by Carey and Patricia Peery. So this should be very interesting. For those of you just joining in, I am doing a series on the Black women. This is a book that has a compilation of different women who wrote poetry, essays, excerpts, just basically their experiences within the Black community. And it's edited by Tony Cade and it's put in this book. So as I was going through it, I thought this was very interesting. This book was published in 1970, and a lot of the mentions in here are still relevant to today. So I figured I would do a couple of episodes reading different synopses by their authors. So for today, we are going to do Is the Black Male Castrated? As usual, listen and then put your comments down below. If you're in your car, crank it up. If you're at home, cleaning, lying down, just, I guess, meditate it all in, let it all come on in. So as I'm reading, I'm discovering new things too. So I'm right along this journey with you. So without further ado, this is about 3 pages long. So bear with me. Get this keyboard out of my way. Okay, Is the Black Male Castrated by Carey and Patricia Peery. In Black communities all over the country today, intelligent and imaginative people are discussing the political, economic, and cultural aspects of the Black liberation struggle. Viable approaches for changing the Afro-Americans' condition in America are beginning to emerge. Almost without notice, an issue slipped in the back door of these discussions and assumed controversial proportions as soon as its presence was acknowledged. We refer to what has become a burning question in our community, and rightly so. What should be the role of women in the movement? Subdivisions of the lead question are: what have been the traditional relations between Black men and women? What are the factors that have defined or determined those relations? Despite the obvious interest of both men and women in this issue, and despite the inclination of both to comment at length and take rigid positions on the topic, we are appalled at a reigning lack of seriousness and sobriety in the debate. Black publications are full of, on the one hand, hysterical and bitter indictments of the past and present conduct of Black men from the bruised and now twisted consciousnesses of sisters who have been driven to irrational extremes by the conditions of a world they never made. On the other, we find the equally neurotic but voguish creed that women must abandon their matriarchal behavior, learn to speak only when they are spoken to, and take up positions 3 paces, or is it 10, behind their men. As far as we know, the question as to whether her place is not properly beside rather than in front of or behind the Black men has yet to be raised. For their part, many Black men berate Black women for their faults. Faults so numerous and so pronounced that one is hard to put to discern in their tirades any ground short of invisibility on which Black womanhood may redeem itself. They do this blind to the age-old implications of such a vociferous rejection of a part of themselves. Others run on about the necessity of subordinating women to their superior and manly will in the planning and execution of revolution, with a monumental indisposition to examine their motives for advancing this precept. We view these superficial and unbalanced attitudes as being predicated on a popular and dangerous fiction, the myth of black male emasculation and its descendant concept, the myth of the black female matriarchy. These companion myths are not recent in their origin. However, they have most recently been popularized through the highly publicized and highly touted work, The Negro Family, The Case for National Action by Daniel Patrick Moynihan. So successfully popularized that even blacks have swallowed his assumptions and conclusions hook, line, and sinker. It is iconic that at a time when blacks are newly perceiving and denouncing the shallowness of white analysis of the black experience, many members of the avant-garde are still capable of being mesmerized by racist social scientific thought, which has utterly failed to produce in-depth studies of the Afro-American social structure. The emasculation theory, as interpreted by blacks, is two-pronged, one version being primarily followed by women, the other commending the allegiance of both men and women. Version number one alleges that black men have failed throughout our history to shield their women and families from the scourge of American racism and have failed to produce a foolproof strategy for liberating black people. It is therefore concluded that black men are weak, despicable niggers who must be brushed aside and overcome by women in the big push toward freedom. Version number two also arrives at the point that black men are weak via the route that black women have castrated them by, among other things, playing their economic ace in the hole. Moynihan's black matriarchy proposition is based incredibly on the statistic that only one quarter of all black families are headed by women. Also linked to this thesis is the woefully misbegotten notion that black women complied with their rapists and used their bodies to rise on the socio-economic ladder, leaving black men behind. What this all adds up to is that black men and women are placing ultimate blame for their subjugation on each other, a propensity which fairly reeks of self-hatred. In other words, blacks are still crippled by self-doubt, and even in 1969, lean painfully toward the view that Europeans could never have kept us in this bind for so long were it not for our weakness, that is, inferiority. It is not difficult to understand why we are unable to see the forest for the trees. After all, the cat who sponges off of you, knocks you around every now and then, and maybe leaves you, is black, not white. By the same token, the chick who tells you this is her money, she made it, and you can just get the hell out, is black, not white. But we are in fact focusing only on the trees when we expend time and energy in the senseless and debilitating family squabble, while the real culprits stand laughing in the wings. What is emasculation? In the broad sense, an emasculated people, cultural group, are a broken people, a people whose spirit, strength, and vigor have been destroyed, who have been reduced to a state of almost total ineffectuality. Specifically applied to a male, emasculation connotes the absence of virility and can mean, though not necessarily, effeminacy. Notwithstanding the colossal suffering which has befallen black people here and abroad as a result of their colonization by Europeans, with its numerous deleterious effects on the black psyche, Do our people truly fit the description given above? And notwithstanding the often literal but more often symbolic castration of hundreds of thousands of black individuals throughout our sojourn in the wilderness, have black men really been stripped of their virility? We contend that, as a whole people, Afro-Americans lack neither spirit nor strength nor vigor, for it is they who have given to this nation the only culture it has, the only humanity it has. As for black men, we must ask the question, if the black male's castration is a fait accompli of long standing, why the frantic need on the part of whites to replay the ritual of castration over and over again in 100 different ways? The answer is simple. The enduring manhood / humanity of blacks, burning bright despite all efforts to extinguish it, is the nemesis of Western civilization. Nowhere do we find this point more beautifully made than in Ron Milner's brilliant play, Who's Got His Own? The memorable character of Shithouse Tim embodies the compelling thesis that no matter to what level of degradation a black man might be reduced, within the solitary confinement of his soul, his manhood crackles white hot, so potent that even from its grotesque cocoon, it sends out vibrations to the next generation. From whence comes the militant fury of Tim Jr., which explodes in a near fatal assault on his white buddy, if not from the heart and mind of that Tommen, wife-beating, evil-tongued, indomitable shithouse Tim? Moynihan and his gang postulate that black society is matriarchal, and that black women have been the primary castrating force in the demise of black manhood. The casting of this image of the black female in sociological bold relief is both consistent and logical in racist terms. For so-called black matriarch is a kind of folk character largely fashioned by whites out of half-truths and lies about the involuntary condition of black women. The matriarchal fairy tale is part of a perennial tendency among whites to employ every available device in their ongoing effort to demasculinize the black male. Movies and radio shows of the 1930s and 1940s invariably peddled the sapphire image of the black woman. She is depicted as iron-willed, effectual, treacherous toward and contemptuous of black men, the latter being portrayed as simpering, ineffectual, whipping boys. Certainly, most of us have encountered domineering black females, and white ones too. Many of them have been unlucky in life and love and seek a bitter haven from their disappointments in fanatical self-sufficiency. Others, out of a tragic fear, brutalize their sons in the child-rearing process, hoping to destroy in them aggressive tendencies which might eventually erupt in assaults against white men and the white system. But it must be emphasized that the white man's sapphire caricature does not closely resemble the real domineering black female, much less the majority of her sisters who do not share that classification. We submit that in reality, black women, domineering or not, have not had the power in this male-dominated culture to effect a coup against anyone's manhood, in spite of their off-sided economic advantage over the black man. A matriarchal system is one in which power rests firmly in the hands of women. We suggest that whatever economic power may accrue to black women by way of the few employment escape valves permitted them by the oppressing group for their own insidious reasons, this power is really illusory and should not be taken at face value. American society is patriarchal. White women suffer the slings and arrows of that system in the first instance. Black women are victimized on two counts. They are women and they are black. A clear case of double indemnity. For the duration of their lives, many black women must bear a heavy burden of the male frustration and rage through physical abuse, desertion, rejection of their femininity, and general appearance. Having a job provides relief for her stomach, but not for her soul. For a black woman's successful coping with the economic problem, and we might throw in the education problem, enhances her rejection by black men, or else invites acceptance in the form of exploitation. Stymied in his attempt to protect and free the black woman and himself, the black man further degrades her. She, doubly powerless and vengeful, insults his manhood by whatever means at her disposal. Thus are many black men and women hateful partners in a harrowing dance. These points have never been lost on white folks, and they continue to bend them to their design of divide and rule. Their past and current success is ensured by the persistent adherence of many blacks, including most would-be revolutionaries, to the basic premises of the American value system, from whence all definitions of masculinity, femininity, right and wrong proceed. It is the transference of values which work for the oppressor in the capitalist context to the milieu of the oppressed, where they are dysfunctional, that has pitted black men against black women and vice versa, a situation which, needless to say, is anathema to the pursuit of self-determination. The salient point, though, in our effort to debunk the castration theory is that although whites falsify the image of black women and use the distortion as one of several castrating tools, their attempt is ultimately abortive. For while Mr. Charlie does set black manhood on the run, it always escapes the pursuer's final lurch and turns up, shaken but together, at the wheel of an Eldorado in a smoke-filled polka den, in a black woman's bed, or on the side of her jaw. More importantly, it has turned up throughout our history in the form of resistance to oppression. Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, notwithstanding, black men hold the majority among our political and cultural heroes. Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and others. Indeed, the black man always surfaces with his manhood not only intact, but much more intact than that of his oppressor, which brings us to question, just who is the emasculated person in this society? Surely, it is the white man whose dazzling symbols of power, his goods, his technology, have all but consumed his human essence. Yes, he is effective because his power enables him to rule, but he is emasculated in that he has become a mere extension of the things he produces. The contrary is true of blacks. Do any of us doubt that Muhammad Ali is the heavyweight champion of the world? What does it matter that Whitey took his jewel-encrusted belt away? If we accept the emasculation theory, we must accept a host of outrageous misrepresentations of the black personality. We must accept the quaint southern myth that most slaves were good niggers who passively accepted their lot. The companion theory being that slavery was not really so bad. We must accept most of the stereotypes that have been paraded before us down the ages, as, for example, William Styron's Nat Turner. But we cannot accept Styron Nat Turner. And why? Because any fool knows that eunuchs, figurative or actual, do not lead slave revolts. Eunuchs do not write plays that pulverize the very foundations of American theater. Eunuchs do not refuse to fight in unholy wars, thumbing their noses at trophies and fame to achieve which some men sell their souls. Eunuchs only do the bidding of the king. Such acts of defiance as these are wrought by men in the name of all black people. The end. Wow, this was a mouthful. It's the Black Male Castrated. Carey and Patricia Peery. Definitely let me know your comments. Let me know your comments below. Let me know your thoughts below. And next week, what shall we read? What shall we read? You have to tune in to find out on the next series of The Black Women, an anthology. See you until then. Stay strong.